Alex never imagined that a simple act of kindness would change his life forever. One rainy evening, he met a homeless man named James. What started as a small gesture turned into a life-altering chain of events, proving that generosity and empathy always come back in ways you'd never expect. I still remember that night like it was yesterday. The rain was relentless, hammering the empty city streets, creating puddles that reflected the flickering neon lights of the shops and street lamps. I had just finished another long, draining day at work. My shoes squelched with every step, my jacket was soaked through, and all I wanted was to get home, dry off, and forget the day ever existed. And then I saw him, a man huddled under a broken bus stop shelter, shivering violently. His hoodie was drenched, his jeans torn, and in his trembling hands, he held a cardboard sign with the words, "Anything helps." Most people walked past, avoiding eye contact, pretending he didn't exist. Cars splashed water near his feet, but he didn't move. I don't know why, but I felt drawn to him. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was empathy, or maybe it was just the kind of instinct you can't explain. The kind that whispers, "Do something." I walked over slowly. "Hey, are you okay?" I asked softly, trying not to scare him. He looked up and I froze for a second. His eyes were tired, red, rimmed, yet there was a quiet, kind depth to them. I'm James," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "I'm Alex," I said. My hand extended, and he hesitated before shaking it. His grip was weak, almost fragile, yet warm. I noticed he didn't have a proper jacket. Without thinking, I slipped off my own and handed it to him. "Here, take this. You'll freeze if you don't." He hesitated, then accepted it, a small flicker of gratitude in his eyes. "You didn't have to do this," he murmured. "I know," I said, "but I want to." For a moment, we stood there in silence, listening to the rain. Then I reached into my bag and offered him the sandwich I had brought for lunch. He accepted it cautiously, unwrapping it slowly as if savoring not just the food, but the gesture itself. We talked. Not much, just small things. The rain, the streets, life in general. And yet somehow it felt monumental. That night, I realized something I hadn't felt in years, a real human connection. No judgments, no pretenses, just two people sharing a moment. Before I left, I asked him if he had somewhere to go. He shook his head. "The streets are my home tonight," he said with a bitter laugh. That hit me harder than I expected. I didn't have the right words, so I just said, "I'll come back tomorrow. I'll bring more food. Maybe we can just talk." He looked at me, a faint smile forming. "I'd like that." And that was it. My heart felt heavy, but strangely light at the same time. Helping him didn't make me feel heroic. It made me feel human. As I walked home through the wet, glistening streets, I couldn't shake the feeling that something important had begun, something that would change both our lives in ways neither of us could imagine. That night, I decided I wouldn't just pass him by like everyone else. I'd return. I'd show him that someone cared. And maybe, just maybe, in helping him, I'd discover something about myself too. The next evening, I couldn't stop thinking about James. The memory of his tired, grateful eyes haunted me all day. By the time work ended, I found myself walking back to the same park bench, carrying 2 steaming cups of coffee. One for me, one for him. I spotted him immediately. James was sitting under the same flickering streetlight, his hoodie pulled low, hunched over as he carefully balanced a small cardboard box of belongings. When he saw me, a faint smile appeared on his worn face. "You came back?" he said quietly, almost surprised. I said I would. I replied, holding out the cup of coffee. "Here, for you." He hesitated for a moment, then accepted it, hands trembling slightly. He sipped, savoring the warmth, and let out a quiet sigh that spoke of relief more than anything else. We sat in silence for a few minutes, listening to the soft hum of the city around us. Distant car engines, the occasional shout, the rhythmic patter of rain dripping from the rooftops. It felt like the world had shrunk to just the two of us. Then he spoke, sharing bits of his story. He told me about the life he had once had, a decent job as a mechanic, a small apartment, friends he had lost touch with. And then the spiral, the accident that left him unable to work, the bills that piled up, the eviction, the loneliness. Each word carried weight, yet he spoke without bitterness. "I don't want pity," James said, looking me in the eye. Sometimes you need someone to see you as a person, not just someone invisible." His words struck me harder than I expected, because that was exactly how he had made me feel, seen. More than that, our conversations were slowly making me see life differently. I realized I had been living on autopilot, chasing deadlines, worrying about money, forgetting what really mattered. Here, on this wet bench, under a flickering streetlight, I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. I told him about my own life, the long days at work, the pressures, the people I felt disconnected from. He listened attentively, nodding, occasionally laughing softly at something I said. And even though he had so little, I realized he had more wisdom and patience than most people I knew. We met again the following nights. Sometimes we brought small snacks, sometimes just coffee. Sometimes we didn't speak at all, simply sharing the quiet company of another human being. And gradually, a bond formed, a trust that couldn't be explained. One night, as we sat in silence watching the distant city lights, he said something I'll never forget. "Alex, people think money or success fixes everything. But sometimes all a person needs is to feel seen, to know someone believes in them." I thought about his words for hours that night. He was right. I had always assumed that to help someone meant giving them money or advice. But it wasn't about that. It was about attention, recognition, and genuine care. By the end of that week, our meetings had become a ritual. No matter what else happened in life, we knew we'd meet on that bench, under the flickering streetlight, sharing stories, coffee, and humanity. That small routine gave me purpose. It reminded me that even in a city full of people who walk past the suffering, one person's choice to stop, listen, and care could make all the difference. Little did I know, those nights of coffee and conversation were laying the foundation for something far bigger, something that would test both of our lives and teach me the most important lesson I'd ever learned. It didn't take long before people around me started noticing my nightly routine with James. "Alex, why are you spending so much time with that homeless guy?" Sophie asked one evening as we sat in my small apartment, the rain tapping against the window. Her voice carried concern, but also a hint of disbelief. I don't know," I said. "I just feel like I should." Sophie frowned, leaning back. "Alex, you have responsibilities, you have work friends, a life. You can't just throw all of that away to sit on a park bench with someone who doesn't even have a future." I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her that James was more than someone who doesn't have a future, that he was kind, intelligent, funny, and full of stories. But I didn't. I just shook my head and said, "I'm not wasting my time. I'm learning something." She sighed. "I just don't want you to get hurt. People like that, they don't change." Her words stung more than I expected. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was naive. But every time I thought about stopping, I remembered the look in James's eyes the first night. Tired, worn, but holding on to a fragile spark of hope. And I knew I couldn't walk away. The following evening, I rushed to the park after a long day at work. I needed the clarity only those streetlight conversations with James could give me. And there he was, sitting quietly on our bench, rain lightly falling around him. "You look tired," he said softly, noticing the tension on my face. "I am," I admitted. "People, they don't understand." James nodded. "Don't let them make you feel wrong for doing what's right." "You're making a difference, Alex. I feel alive again because of you. That's real." Hearing that made everything else fade. The doubts, the judgment, even the anxiety, they didn't matter. What mattered was the small bubble we had created together, a place where the outside world couldn't judge or dismiss us. But it wasn't always easy. Some nights, James would talk about his past, the accident that ended his career, the bills he couldn't pay, the family he lost. He never blamed anyone, but I could feel the weight of his life pressing down, reminding me that some things couldn't be fixed with coffee or sandwiches. Yet his presence was a reminder of something deeper, that even when the world seems cold, a small act of kindness can change everything. Our friendship became a sanctuary for both of us. One night, I asked him, "Do you ever feel hopeless?" He looked at me, eyes steady. "Sometimes." But I've learned that even when things feel darkest, a single act of care can be a lifeline. You showed me that. Don't ever stop. Those words hit me hard. They made me reflect on my own life, how easily I had become numb to suffering and pain. And yet, by simply showing up for James, I had reminded myself of something vital. Empathy and humanity are not weaknesses. They're strength. I realized that doing the right thing often meant facing criticism, doubt, and even fear. But true connection, the kind that changes lives, doesn't come without risk. And by choosing to sit with James night after night, I was choosing something far more valuable than comfort or convenience. I was choosing humanity. Little did I know that the challenges of the world outside the park were only beginning. Soon, a crisis would strike that would test not only my career, but the very lessons James had taught me about kindness, trust, and the power of human connection. It was a quiet morning when I went to the park and found the bench empty. My chest tightened, a strange mix of worry and disappointment washing over me. The small folded note sitting where James usually sat caught my eye. Hands slightly trembling, I picked it up and unfolded it. "Thank you for believing in me. I'll never forget." "Jamie's." I stared at the words. Short, simple, but heavy with meaning. Did I really make a difference? Was that all the acknowledgement I would get? I felt a strange emptiness, but also a quiet warmth. Somehow, this small note felt monumental. Weeks passed. Life continued its usual chaos until one day everything changed. My work was under intense scrutiny. A major project I had been leading for months was suddenly in jeopardy. A colleague had made a critical mistake, and management was ready to blame me entirely. Emails flooded my inbox, phones rang endlessly, and my chest tightened with panic. I didn't know what to do. I felt cornered, helpless, like the weight of the world was pressing on my shoulders. Without thinking, I ran to the park, needing the calm and clarity that only James could provide. And then he appeared, calm, steady, confident. "Alex," he said simply. I blinked, taken aback. "You what?" "How are you here?" He smiled that quiet, knowing smile I had come to recognize. "I can help." "Sit down." Over the next few hours, he guided me step by step, calmly explaining strategies, sharing contacts, and helping me organize my approach. It was surreal, A man who had once been invisible to the world was now the reason I might save my career. "I don't understand," I said, astonished. "How do you know this stuff?" "I've been around people who've struggled." He replied softly, "You helped me when I needed it most. Now it's my turn." By evening, the chaos had subsided. Deadlines were met, issues were clarified, and I had regained control. Exhausted, I sat on the bench beside James, looking at him in awe. I said, voice filled with gratitude, "No," he corrected gently. "You saved me first. You gave me hope. That's what comes back around." I sat quietly, letting those words sink in. For the first time, I fully understood the ripple effect of kindness. A small act, a sandwich, a coat, a few conversations had created waves that returned in ways I could never have imagined. It wasn't about heroism. It was about humanity. And suddenly, I felt that the world was a little smaller, a little warmer, and far more connected than I had ever realized. From that day on, my perspective on life shifted. I noticed opportunities to help others, not for recognition, but simply because it was right. And I knew that James, the man everyone ignored, was now an integral part of my life, a friend, a mentor, and a living reminder that generosity, empathy, and kindness always find a way to return. After that life-changing day, everything in my world felt different. The office crisis was over, but the experience lingered in my mind. I kept replaying James's words, "You saved me first. You gave me hope." That's what comes back around. I began noticing small things in life I had overlooked for years. The way a stranger smiled, the simple kindness of someone holding a door, the quiet moments that often go unnoticed. I realized that life wasn't just about success, deadlines, or social status. Life was about people, connections, empathy, and the ability to make a difference, even in ways that seemed small or insignificant. I met James that evening on our park bench as usual. He looked at me, eyes twinkling with a rare joy. "You've changed," he said softly. I laughed quietly, shaking my head. "I think I'm just noticing things I didn't see before. You helped me see the world differently." James smiled, leaning back on the bench. "See, that's the thing. Kindness doesn't just help the other person. It changes you too." And he was right. Over the next few weeks, I started taking little steps to help others without expecting anything in return. I would buy a sandwich for someone waiting in line, offer a kind word to a colleague, or simply listen to someone who needed to talk. Each time, I felt that same quiet satisfaction, the feeling that I was part of something bigger than myself. I began to understand what it truly meant to be human, to be aware of the struggles of others, and to respond with compassion, not judgment. James, despite everything he had lost, taught me more about resilience, empathy, and hope than I could ever have imagined. One rainy evening, we sat silently on the bench. The city around us was alive with lights, movement, and noise, yet it felt like our little bubble existed outside of it all. James turned to me and said, "You know, you don't need to save the world. You just need to save the person in front of you." That's how it all starts. I nodded, letting his words sink in. It was a simple truth, yet profound. One small act can create ripples that extend far beyond what we see. I realized that my journey with James had not just changed his life. It had changed mine. I thought back to that first night when I handed him a sandwich and a jacket in the pouring rain. Who would have thought that such a small gesture would lead to all of this? The friendship, the life lessons, the personal growth. It all started with the simplest act of human kindness. And yet, there was still so much to learn. The world wasn't perfect, and life would continue to throw challenges at me. But now I face those challenges with a new perspective, a renewed heart, and a deeper understanding of what truly matters. In helping James, I discovered a truth that can never be overstated. Compassion is contagious, kindness is transformative, and even the smallest gestures can change lives in ways we cannot imagine. The days turned into weeks, and our nightly park bench conversations became a ritual. Alex and James had shared stories, laughter, and moments of silence that spoke louder than words. The city continued its busy, indifferent rhythm around them, but in their little bubble, life felt meaningful, calm, and real. One sunny afternoon, Alex arrived at the park slightly earlier than usual. James was already there, leaning back, his face relaxed, a rare smile playing on his lips. For a moment, Alex simply watched him, thinking about everything they had been through: the first rainy night, the coffee conversations, the doubts, the judgments, and ultimately the life-changing moment when James helped him save his career. "Do you ever think about that first night?" Alex asked softly. James chuckled lightly. "Every day, I don't think I would be here. Really here, without that sandwich and jacket." Alex laughed, shaking his head. "I never imagined it would lead to all this. Our friendship, the lessons, everything. That's the thing about life," James replied. The smallest act can set off a chain of events you never expected. A single choice, a simple gesture, can change both your life and someone else's. Alex nodded, feeling a warmth spread through him. He realized he had grown more than he could have imagined. The world outside still had its chaos, its judgments, and its challenges, but he now saw it differently. Life wasn't about power, money, or recognition. It was about connection, empathy, and kindness. For the first time in years, Alex felt fully aware of the ripple effect of his actions. Each time he helped someone, even in a small way, it was as if the world subtly tilted toward goodness. Helping James had started a chain reaction, teaching him patience, humility, and the true meaning of generosity. "James," Alex said, turning to face him, "I think I finally understand. Kindness isn't just about helping someone. It's about what it teaches you. It changes you even more than it changes them." James nodded. "Exactly. And sometimes the universe has a way of returning the favor when you least expect it. You gave me hope when I had none. And then, when you needed help, I could give it back." They sat together in comfortable silence, the sunlight casting a golden glow over the park. Birds chirped softly in the distance, and for the first time, Alex felt completely at peace. He realized that life, with all its unpredictability, could still be beautiful. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Alex made a silent promise to himself to continue helping wherever he could, to value every human connection, and to live with compassion in his heart. He understood that life was a series of choices, and he had chosen well. The story of Alex and James ended not with dramatic revelations, but with a quiet, profound truth. Small acts of kindness can create unimaginable change. One life can touch another, and in doing so, both lives are forever transformed. What we learn from this story is kindness is never wasted. Even the smallest act can change someone's life, and in doing so, it changes yours. Generosity, empathy, and compassion always find their way back, often in the most unexpected ways. Remember, the world may not notice, but your heart will know. Every good deed counts. If this story inspired you, share and subscribe for more real, life emotional stories that remind us what truly matters.